loving it, but I do want to know what the community has to say as well. Let me know if we've had any crazy sweeps or a whole broadcast full of sweeps similar to what this is today.
And we are on our way into battle number 1, starting off with Himmelsdorf, and we have Aquatic M60s attacking and critical hit on defense. And already,
so we've seen all these teams kind of play completely different on this map that I've noticed.
Yeah, so the old format used to see us see 4 rounds on the same side. So a team like M60s already should have multiple strats where they're used to, we run one strat one round, and then the next round we're going to make this adjustment and run something completely different. And to be fair, critical hit should have the same thing, just not as a high level as Aquatic M60s. Now, that being said, I believe last time both rounds on Himmelsdorf went in favor of Aquatic M60s. So they are just making a push down the 8 line right now, bringing 2 215Bs, 2 113s, an E5, a 50B, and a 5100. Once again, using that 5100 instead of like a 1390 or some sort of light tank, choosing to bring just that 5100, which is a bigger tank, and it has the full clip that it can drop off. 6 shells, a little bit bigger clip than a 50B, doesn't do as high alpha though. However, that being said, critical hit choosing to go with a pretty standard West defense, bringing 2 215Bs, 2 113s, 2 50Bs, and an AMX 1390. Pretty symmetrical lineup there. 2 15Bs bringing the hurt. 113s also have extremely high DPM, but they're just a little bit faster. And then those 50Bs, as we've been seeing all night, can just run rampant in pairs. You know, it's 3,200 damage.
And a very early cap out right here, going for that 2.
Yeah, so they're setting up with the same strat they ran.
The 2 cap.
Yeah, they're saying that they're running a very similar strat to the one they ran versus Ping. They just chose a different approach. Instead of going over the hill and then taking that B line down, they're just coming up and straight up the 8 line. They're getting into position. They have their crossfires going. They have 2 tanks on cap, and they're going to make critical hit make a decision here. Critical hit choosing not to put themselves in a position where they can be overmatched. Just 4 of these heavies rolling in. The 50Bs are separated though. They're going to come down. They're probably going to cut across the courtyard.
Though, yeah, absolutely.
Now, critical hit don't need to push in here just yet. They have 25 seconds to work with, but they're going to choose to go in, and they're just going to commit right now before the 50Bs are in position. And these 215s and this 113 are going to push across. They're going to try to focus out Mr. Man. The 50Bs are coming. They're going to have their shots 1390 putting off shots, and Mr. Man gets deleted.
There goes Mr. Man, yeah. Annie May, though, taking quite a considerable amount of damage, and there she goes.
50B's trying to get in here and find these shots. They're trying to focus out this 113. He's getting focused down. Good focus fire out of critical hit. They are down on HP, but they're taking guns out of the fight pretty effectively. They need to hurry up and capitalize on it.
Still so much damage, though, as Veggie is now taken down.
Guns still in favor of critical hit. They do have a 215B alive on 1 HP, and he goes down. It is now 4-4. Both teams still have their tier 8
This is a slugfest.
Yeah, no, it's a slugfest back and forth, and damage has actually shifted in favor of critical hit. That AMX 5100 has been out of the fight for a little while, getting reloaded, and they're just trying to focus out this E5. Couple
Lefty
bounce
and Morphic,
shots.
though, are kind of sitting in the backfield, not taking any damage and taking out Lefty now.
So these 50Bs have both been on reload for a little bit, and they're just trying to conserve as much of their HP as they can. They were in there to try to keep alive their tanks, and now they're loaded. They're putting off damage.
This is back and forth.
Yep, they need to try to get Morphic out here. Halo coming in, dropping his shots. If they can focus out this 215B, they can all scatter in different directions, and they still have a chance. They are up on HP just over a couple hundred.
Oh, and again, another trade. Panzer Gunner goes down, but then so does Morphic. It is now a 2-on-2 situation. That 50B should be reloaded now.
And 50-100 just cranking out shot after shot. 50B is still reloaded. Is he going to find the kill shot? Yes,
and he does.
So it's just now to the little 1390 full HP and on reload.
Still technically possible, though, yes?
Yeah, it's possible. He would need to create a series of one-on-ones and not engage them at the same time. And a snapshot coming out of that 5100 just landed on that 1390 on the move. That's not an easy shell, especially out of 5100. That's not the most accurate gun ever. So crazy shot there. RNG just a little bit in his favor. And this 1390 is just going to try to run, draw it out. And it may not even be that he expects to win this. He may just drive it around so his team can sit here, talk about what they did.
Right.
And
give them a little more time.
Figure out what they're going to do the next round.
And, of course, the 5100 and the 50B from Felix and Dark Ninja, they're just going to have a little picnic and sit on the cap. I mean, there's really no reason for them to chase, and they should just be sitting on cap.
Yeah, so they put 45 seconds on cap. Both of them are sitting there up in that A6 corner, so they're both together. So they're not going to allow
covering different angles as well. I really like this.
So they're choosing not to let themselves be separated like I was worried about. You know, creating a series of one-on-ones can make it possible for the clutch pretty much anything. However, a good team like M60s that has the experience, they're not going to allow themselves to be separated like that. They have both lanes covered, one watching east, one watching west. And Halo's going to probably slow it down. If I was him, I would have been going all the way up to A0, so I have that little bit of range, maybe work the camo and find an extra shot, but he's just going to take the close peek. There is a corpse there, I believe. Or no, it's just the car.
No, I
just
believe
takes
there's a corpse.
Yep, so they have that for cover. He's going to land a shot. He's going to get 2 put into him. He's going to poke away, and Cap's going to be down at 0. He is tracked around that corner. And that is the first battle in favor of M60s. However, critical hit showing that they are not afraid.
No, they came to play.
They came to play. They're going to take those brawls. They're going to go head-to-head, and they put M60s up against the wall, which is something I didn't expect.
Right, neither did I. They had M60s, like you said, on their back foot, but beautiful adaptation, or just the way they were able to kind of take control of that scramble was really impressive.
Yeah, and if you want to look at the damage score real quick, French autoloader is playing a major part in this game for both teams. Felix managed to put up 3,900 in that AMX-50B. That's almost 4,000. And then followed by the Tier 8 coming in at 2,700. So the Tier 8 second on the team for M60s. And then the Tier 8 for critical hit put up almost 3,000 damage, leading off his team on damage done. Fired 15, 13 direct hits, 12 pens, 2,800 damage. That is pretty awesome out of a Tier 8. Able to get around those getting around those corridors, coming in, popping in where the tanks were distracted. And that's good play out of a Tier 8. And that's what I was talking about, is Tier 8s can be useful in those sort of roles, because teams don't focus on them. So when they get in behind, they just kind of ignore them. But when you have a tank like 1390, it's 1,200 damage that you can just pump out and shot after shot after shot. And eventually it just stacks up. And then you're just like, oh, well, there goes 1,000 HP. And if there are other guns shooting at you at the same time,
that's going to be
before you know it, you're dead. So they did a very good job that round coordinating. If they can keep that Tier 8 in the fight, again, we'll have to see. And now teams are going to swap sides, and M60s are going to be on defense. I'm kind of a big fan of their south defense, very aggressive. It is a bit risky, though, because if a team knows it's coming, they can set up for it, they can catch tanks out.
Well, and critical hit has played them, so they may have used that already.
I know for a fact we saw them run that courtyard defense the other day when we were watching those VODs. They did the same thing they did versus Ping. They just went for it. They went straight across the courtyard, and they got those lanes set up to where, at that point, any move that Ping made, they were pushing into guns. So we'll have to see if they are able to pull off the same thing again.
I gotta say, I'm really enjoying the play we've seen out of Aquatic M60s. Overall, from today, in the 5 matches they played earlier against Ping, and now the first match, and now going into Game 2 against Critical Hit, I'm a fan. I gotta say, I'm an Aquatic M60s fan. And I know that name is actually kind of a...
Yeah, so it's a play on a Clan Wars reward tank. We'll get into that another time. It's a pretty funny story. A lot of the community already should know it. If they don't, I'm sure they can find the answers pretty quickly. So that being said, we are into battle number 2. Teams have swapped sides. Aquatic M60s are on defense, choosing to go with that same lineup. So whether or not they run the same strat remains to be seen. However, it's the same lineup that they were running last time they ran this strat. 3 113s, 2 E5s, a 50B, and a 5100. So choosing, even at the very least, all they're doing is running the same lineup just to play with the heads of critical hit. So even if they don't do the same thing, critical hit are going to be saying, well, they could be doing this again. So we'll have to see if they pull it off. Meanwhile, critical hit coming in with 3 215Bs, a 113, 2 50Bs, and a 1390. The 1390 actually pushed up real aggressive, and just like I talked about, he found some early shots, as did the 50Bs. And this is what I was talking about. Critical hit looked for this. They found some early damage, some shots, only damaging the one single 113 for, it looks like 600 damage. Could have been more. He could have been permatracked or something like that, and he could have been deleted, so a little bit lucky that paid off. However, critical hit seem to have a plan here. They're just pushing with these 215Bs. They have the HP. The 1390 is just coming in behind.
He's just charging
He's just
the 113.
going. He doesn't care if they shoot him, because if the 215 or if the 113s decide to shoot him, that gun's not shooting at their tier 10s. Meanwhile, they managed to delete this first 113. They are going to turn around and most likely focus on Warfic here in the corner and get him out of there. And the 1390 is still alive. One tank down for both teams.
This 50B though out of Felix is coming right on the flank, and they're not even paying attention.
Just pick off that 113, most likely tracked. He's not going to go anywhere. I don't think he'll go down there because I don't think the 50B can finish him.
Nope.
However, the 5100 should have shots to finish him off. Takes a shot, and this is just back and forth with critical hits.
I like these two teams.
On guns.
These are brawls. These are straight up brawls.
They're going for it. They're not holding back. They're saying, all right, we know what you're going to do. We're just going to take the brawl. We want to fight you. And props off to critical hit for not being shy. However, this one doesn't look like it's going to come out in their favor, as M60s are up around 2,000 HP, and they have Actually, they have less guns alive right now, so they need to be careful. That evens it out at 3 apiece.
Yeah, as Anime goes down, and now Felix coming with that 50B, charging the other 50B out of Panzer to take him out. One more shot should do it for him, and that is going to indeed do it for him, as Carey now runs away in the 50B.
So it's 2-on-1. The 50B of Felix is full HP, so he can't clip him out. He could possibly kill this 50-100 if he can find the shots and then run away. However, Felix is not going to give him a moment to breathe or let him go anywhere. He is just stuck in this courtyard. Felix knows he can clip him out. He knows he has the HP lead, so he's just going to come around the corner, eat the shells. Takes the first one, takes the second one. Doesn't matter if he clips him out at this point because he can live. So unless he gets his ammo rack detonated, he's fine. There goes 2 shots into him.
One more, and there it is.
And there he goes. He knew he had the HP lead. He knew he could just take the hits, trade it out. The 5100 was there to clean it up.
These are the fastest games. So I mentioned earlier we saw some fast games, but these are just straight up.
These are fast for a different reason.
These are just barn burners.
Yeah, these are teams just going for it. There's the let's not play slowly. Let's not play.
Let's
like,
not play coy here. You know what I'm saying?
Let's just go
like,
for the
we
brawl.
know each other.
Let's get it out, and it's really fun to watch. However, you know, unfortunately, it's going in favor of M60s. However, when you have these fights tend to put teams on a more even playing field when these sort of things happen.
Right.
When you go for these all brawls, because if it's one tank's out of position, you know, that's GPM out of the fight, and it could go back and forth. It's when you have those really slow games between teams where the individual skill kind of comes out and they're allowed to like really put their foot down. With this, it's just who has the better coordination, who gets the timing right. And props off for Critical Hit for giving it a go. We'll have to see if they can start pulling some rounds.
They're really not doing poorly.
Games.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually down to 1 or 2 tanks. So
yeah, no, they're taking tanks out of the fight. Their focus fire is pretty good. They tend to slack off after the first tank or two, so they need to find a way to keep that momentum going. Just all right, this tank's dead. Someone should already be calling out like, all right, after this 113 is dead, this 50B is
take
next.
Out the 50B.
Already call it so they know like they're scrolling out between shots. They go, where's this 50B? All right, so after I fire this shot, I need to turn this way and line up on this next tank.
Got it.
And that's the sort of coordination you really have to have down.
Yeah. So looking at the damage here, I mean,
once again, French autoloaders. They are putting up some damage. Felix for the second round in a row, just putting up 4K in his 50B. So on a map like Himmelsdorf with all its corridors, autoloaders can just roll in down one corridor, dump their clip, and drive away, and that's what Felix has been doing so far all match.
Yeah, but I mean, even Carey on the other side with the same French autoloader, 37.95.
Yeah, him and Panzer both got the early shots off on that 113 crossing the courtyard. And then that 5100 over on M60s managed to put up 1600, so got about 1 clip off. So it is 2-0. Going to round number 3, and we are going to switch maps to Prokhorovka next. So we have not seen Prok tonight.
I was going to say, we have not.
So, you know, like we watched last night during the VOD. So this was actually, Prok was one of the maps where M60s started to throw. They started to lose some rounds they definitely shouldn't have, pushed into some unfavorable situations, thinking they had an overmatch when they really didn't, that sort of stuff. So we'll have to see if they can make the changes, slow it down.
I don't see them making the same mistakes, especially after what they told us, told you rather, where they're like, look,
don't expect us to lose 4
again
today.
Yeah, that's...
I don't see it either. We'll have to see. But however, Critical Hit do know we beat them on this map last night. They may have that extra confidence, like, hey, this is one of our maps. Let's do this. Let's take them out.
At the same time, though, I don't want to see Critical Hit going in with too much confidence. I mean, yeah, they just lost 2 games, but like, okay, this is the map we took them on last time. We can definitely do it again. I want to see just a little bit of caution out of Critical Hit, especially on this map, knowing that Aquatic M60s aren't going to let that same thing happen again.
Yeah, it's a very fine line between slowing it down and making sure what you do is right and not taking too long and giving up the opportunity that's in front of you. So, like I said, battle number 3 is on Prokhorovka. AM60s coming with an E5 and I7. Once again, breaking out a 430. We saw that in the first match tonight. Rather odd pick. The STB, the 140 bat shot, and RU251. So pretty standard lineup for Prok, bringing 2 heavies and then a bunch of medium tanks. Some teams have even resorted to just bringing 1 heavy. A lot of defenses we see with the I7s involve some sort of split running, like the I7 on the 5 line and then everything else over on the 6 just covering him. And we're seeing something a little bit similar, except it's just with 1 tank of the 430 and Mr. Man over there, and I can already tell you exactly what that 430 is doing. That 430 is going to go up there and sit in the bush up at A980. The 430 does have some of the highest camo of the Russian or just tier 10 mediums in general. So he's going to get up there, he's going to sit in the bush where he can perma-light this cap, and if Critical Hit want to go push over here and try to cap out, they're going to have to find him because they're going to keep getting lit and they're going to try to figure out where he's sitting. And if they take too long, there's two things that can happen because he's on this hill over here. If they want to push up to kill him, they have to be up on that hill to kill him. And so they have to push up. And look at the position coming out here out of the rest of M60s. If they get right here or right here and they're pushing up on this slope right here to try to get at this tank, they're going to have shots. And so they could bleed HP. So then they're in a tricky situation of, well, we can't cap because we're permanently lit right here. We have to kill him or we need to push over here. If they want to push over, he's going to have shots on their rear. So it's a real tricky situation for them to be in.
And Lefty actually playing in a Grill 15. That's, I think, the first time we've seen that tank today.
Let's see here. Lefty is sitting over here in a Grill 15. Yes, it is the first time we're seeing it today. Going over it real quick. Critical Hit bringing two 113s, two 140s, a Grill, a Batchat, and an RU. The Grill 15 recently replaced the Waffenträger off E100, so it replaced a giant German autoloader with a much smaller, leaner tank. It's consistent fire and pumps out about 750 damage alpha on one of the quickest aiming guns in the game. So it is a very lethal tank destroyer. However, it is a glass cannon.
Yeah,
you
about to say that.
Land a shell in the same area, especially as an artillery, and you are going to wreak all sorts of havoc.
Oh, that postcode, it's dead, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's especially. So luckily for him, M60s are not bringing an artillery piece, which I don't think has really ever been M60 style to begin with. So that being said, Critical Hit, while I've been talking, have gone ahead and just pushed up the 2 line. They're trying to find a situation where they can get onto this 1 cap. M60 is running a very complicated multi-layer defense. So they have this I-7 kind of sitting here, hold down, and he can permanently push up, light this 1 cap, and get the shots if he needs to. Because of the way that turret's shaped, he has to be exposed just very minimally, and he can land those shots. E5 over here to support him is just going to be sitting here in a bush. And the rest of these mediums from M60s can just put to those same spots I marked earlier over E6 and A6, and he can land those shots to cover anything pushing this I-7. So if they decide, all right, we're going to push this I-7 to get him out of the fight, the Russian mediums are not far away to support him. However, that being said, he took some early damage around 700, so I'm going to assume it was that grill elevated up on this slope, managed to find a shot on his upper plate just from the angle he was poking up on, and managed to take him out. And it looks like Critical Hit are actually setting up to deal with this I-7. They've pushed over into this pocket here on the 5 line, and they're just kind of poking up, and the tanks from Aquatic M60s have not gotten off any shots yet.
Nope, and Panzer Gunner was thinking about kind of pushing over towards that 140 from Veggie, but decided to back off now. Luckily, narrowly dodging a shot there as he now backs up towards his team.
So I actually see what they're going for right now. They're going for a really interesting screen. They're just pushing the 113s over into that I-7. Russian medium sitting here. It looks like they're going to join the fight. I thought they were going to try to screen these mediums as they come over, but they're just going to try to focus out Felix.
And
they get him down, and that's a tank lead in favor of Critical Hit. We'll have to see how M60s can respond. And Veggie just getting deleted. That's what I'm talking about having to be critical and just deleting it. And here goes down. First tank goes down for Critical Hit. However, they are going to return that with Mr. Man going down here in just a second. He gets traded out, and momentum's still in Critical Hit's favor.
There goes Annie as well as Mr. Man here. Dark Ninja is going to go down potentially in this next shot.
So that autoloader, it looks like he's almost out. Morphic does find the kill, and they take out Morphic first because they know Dark Ninja's on reload. They're looking for a shot. That 140 of, I don't even know how to say that name, is just stuck at the moment. And he's one shot. The 113 trying to sit there and simp for him, just trying to move back and forth, make sure he doesn't get shot and go down because they want that extra gun alive. And this is in favor of Critical Hit. Now, the HP's even. They have more guns up, and they've left this grill sitting over here off on the weak flank. So if they decide, and the grill, out of camera, lines up a shot on that 140 and takes him down. So it's just down to this E5 who's a one-shot, or has all his HP, excuse me, and this STB versus 4 tanks, and this grill has 15. Now the biggest thing about this right now is they need to not leave this grill out of the fight. He has all the HP. He needs to start taking some hits because if these tanks start dropping, this is going to
be a bad situation.
It's going to be a bad situation.
But that's the problem. You were saying the grill doesn't really have the capability of taking multiple hits.
So he doesn't have the capability of taking hits in terms of he's not going to bounce anything. However, when you have all 1,800 of your HP, and just like this is what I was talking about. Critical Hit all of a sudden went from being in a nice favorable position to not being
so much
in a good position. They have their 113 and the grill separated. The grill's trying to close and find some shots. The 113 is going to go ahead and dump over and try to trade out this STB.
Oh no, but that's a miss.
And it's a missed shot, and he does find the kill shot, and now this 113 just needs to go up and over. The Z5 actually not going to go for the screen. He's going to choose to go over. If I was him, I would have just pushed down on that 113 and tried to keep him on that side of the train track so that Grill can't get any shots. However,
and
now
that's really unfortunate. That was a situation where the M60s actually could have taken the game, but now with very little life left and a Grill sitting very pretty and ugly coming towards Halo to help out this 113, it's not looking good for the M60s at all.
Yeah, so this Grill's just going to push up. He has all 1800 HP, so unless some miracle ammo rack happens, the Grill will just be able to eat the shells. Yeah, he'll lose the HP, but it doesn't matter because his last tank will die. So they're going to wait. Grill's going to go over. He's going to draw the shot, and now Halo's going to go over as well. Lefty actually misses his shot, it looks like. Tries to go for the ramp, so he's going to take a second shot.
Wait a second here.
They need to just make that shot
I was going to say, if
count. And finally, critical hit. Put a point up on the board for the first time tonight.
But that was really sketchy because the way that Aquatic M60s were actually turning that around in their favor was pretty impressive.
So this comes down to the composure of the teams and their experience.
Right.
M60s know what you have to do to turn those around. And turning them around is not easy, but if the stars align, you can do it. And so they did everything that they needed to do right to attempt to turn that around. And critical hit, it never should have been that close. They had the 4 guns. They left that Grill just out of the fight looking for some shots. He had the HP. He should have just rolled in, just rolled up, driven right point blank to that E5 when they were still separated, just put a shot in, draw the fire, and then that can allow the other tanks of critical hit to start getting their guns into the fight because they were all low HP and they didn't want to poke up and take any damage at that point because they're going to die. And that's exactly what happened was that Grill stayed out and they managed to find these isolations on these one-shotters on their side. And so they take one tank out and then took another one out. And then all of a sudden it was in that situation where it became that 2-on-1. And that's not really a situation you want to be in.
No, definitely not. And they actually played that 2-on-1 very beautifully, by the way, coming in at different angles. I thought that was very well done.
Yeah, and that's what you need to do when you have 2 separate tanks alive and one has the HP is, and you put him in a situation where he has to shoot the one with full HP and not take the other gun out of the fight, if you can. So looking at the damage real quick, Halo in that 113, who stayed alive to the very end, putting up 4K, then Lefty in that Grill putting up 2,600, so he did fire 16 times, hit 9, and penned 4. So you could argue that he should have been more effective. I know he was shooting at some hold-down tanks a lot of the time, so maybe not some favorable shots, where he was just trying to sneak in a shot. However, firing that many times and only even hitting that many times, you got to kind of look at that, maybe take some smarter shots, maybe know when to hold your shells and make sure they count, because once you fire, then all of a sudden you're 11 seconds out from being able to fire again, and for all you know, that's going to be the time when you have a shot you could actually pen.
Or save the teammate or what have you.
Exactly.
So
we are real close from starting battle number 4. We're going to switch sides and be on steps again.
And it's not a 5-0.
It's not a 5-0. It's 2-1 in favor of M60s. Let's see if critical hit can even it up.
We'll find out in just a few seconds here. 15 seconds out on this match. So critical hit showing signs of life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really fair. They've been showing signs of life, and these games haven't really been lopsided, but finally able to take their first W or their first round over Aquatic M60s, and I'm now very curious to see how the M60s answer back.
Yeah, so we'll have to see if they can have the composure to pull it back. Looking at it, M60s bringing an E5, a 430 again, the STB, the 140, the Batchat, and then switching to the Tier 9 lineup for, I believe, the first time tonight, bringing that T54 and the AMX 30. Meanwhile, critical hit bringing the 215B, an E5, 3 STBs, a 140, and an RU251. So both teams choosing to go for East plays. Critical hit being the defending side. Looks like they're going to go tuck up right underneath the hill, have the E5s covering them. And meanwhile, Aquatic M60s are going to push up onto the hill. So this is an interesting situation where one of these teams either needs to commit or they need to back away. Typically, what you'll see is the attacking team will realize they're all here and this is a bad crossfire, and they'll back out. This is not the same.
Needs to be careful, though.
Yeah, this is not the same situation we saw yesterday. He's going to poke up, try to find some lights. Looks like these mediums are going to push all the way over to the red line and try to start getting up here where these E5 and STB can't hit them. But I don't think they realize exactly how many guns from M60s are coming over this hill. They're just going to dump all over into this overmatch. And these other guns need to make sure they have some shots in this fight. If M60s get off this hill into the low ground, those E5s and 140s out of the fight are not going to be able to support them.
But down the hill, here comes the whole team of Aquatic M60s.
They're just going to push, and they are just going to circle these guys around, spin them around. Vanity gets focused out. Panzer Gunner also gets focused out. He goes down, and this STB is going to be not too far away. Morph going for the block, keeping him in there, and that's 3 tanks down in a matter of 15 seconds.
That was ridiculous.
So tanks heavily in favor of Aquatic M60s as well as HP.
Yeah.
Very well played, and this comes down to these teams playing yesterday, like we pointed out on. The Critical Hit did win this side yesterday, running that exact same strat. And M60s said, all right, if you're going to run this strat like we're predicting, we're just going to go up and over. We know if we force this brawl this way, we can win it. Last time they tried to cross over from the west side, I believe. This time they just said, all right, we're just going to take the east. If you guys are there, we're going to fight you for it. And just perfectly executing that push. Focus fire absolutely on point. Great block out of Morphic to make sure that that tank doesn't get away. And now it's just a matter of cleanup, focusing down this E5.
Good night, Irene. Wow, what an amazingly fast. I mean, you talk about Blitzkrieg. That was nuts. They came straight over that hill. Aquatic M60s immediately took out the tanks of Critical Hit sitting right there on that line, and they just, I mean, that 9, what was it, the 8-9 line? That was a massacre.
Yeah, and the funniest thing that if you think about it, I said when teams just want to go for the straight-out brawls, they'll bring the 2 tier 9s.
And sure enough.
M60s brought the 2 tier 9s, they brought the weight, and they just went up and over. Just let's take the fight. Here's the extra HP, here's the extra guns, and it paid off. They were just able to go in, they had the extra guns, they created that overmatch, and they capitalized on it. They just, first tank came over, boom, 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 got deleted. Second tank was already tagged up from the Rams, and I think he took 1 stray shot, and he went down, and then it just snowballed from there on out.
That was
brutal.
That was quick.
That was brutal, let's be honest.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're looking at the damage here, Redux in that STB doing 3,100, and then we have the E5 doing 2,000, and then the 430 also doing 2,000 with Veggie in the bat chat. I mean, that's a really good even spread.
Yeah, once again, you know, just the 1 tank of the STB standing out at 3K, and then everything else real nice and consistent. 2K, 1,900, 1,700, 1,400, and 1,200.
Yeah, and then Critical Hit really, I mean, Lefty doing quite a bit with the STB, getting 3,700, most in the game, but the rest of his team not really able to get any shots off simply because they got destroyed.
Vanity fired 2 shots and did no damage. And that sort of situation they were just in is a situation where having intel and eyes is important. Panzer, you pointed out, like you were worried for Panzer there. He could have been more aggressive there, and even if he took damage, he needed to know what was for sure there.
Yeah.
And having that intel and seeing that push coming before it's on top of you, that there was just no time for Critical Hit to make that adjustment just because of how they were set up. The tanks from M60s were there, they weren't spotted, and then they just came over like a waterfall, crashed down on top of it, and it was just over.
That was awesome. I like that analogy. I like that. That was good. It was the first thing you said all day I've liked.
Okay,
so
still scumbag. Still scumbag.
I mean, I play SPGs anymore, but I'm still a scumbag. Don't you forget it.
Yup.
So we are now moving 60 seconds out from our next match is going to be the Aquatic M60s up 3-1 over Critical Hit.
2 rounds away, so if they win both the rounds,
that is a qualifying spot for the Gold League. Again, $325,000, and then they also have the chance to qualify over the next 2 seasons for the final, the global finals, which is set to be in a location so secret we don't know.
Yeah, just let alone this season's finals. You know, 4 teams will be going to this season's finals, live event, and then like you said, the global grand finals a little under a year from now.
Yeah.
So a lot to play for, and M60s will want to be back for their 3rd season.
Absolutely. And so far, I mean, it looks like they are set to do so, but Critical Hit have been fighting back. I mean, to be completely honest, aside from that last round, which was a complete just rollover. I mean, that was a bodying.
Yeah, and that was a positional and a strat thing. M60s figured, all right, we're going to see if they're doing the same thing. If they're doing the same thing, we're just going to execute it this way. That wasn't some like cute little strat they come up with. Like, we'll just try this and we'll see what the other team does. It could be for this or this. This strat was just set up to say, they did this yesterday. If they're doing the same thing, we're just going to roll over them right now.
Yeah.
If they do something else, we'll figure it out then. I don't even know if they had a plan for if they're not here. I think they were just banking on them running the same strat, and if you're set up for it, you've seen it once before. What we just saw is exactly what just happened.
So a player did actually just drop. We are going to get him right back in just a second. But like I was saying, for the most part, aside from that rolling of that roll of destruction there, these have been close matches between these two. So
and till this point, it had always been Critical Hit to an extent. Really pushing those brawls.
Yeah.
Everyone's staying for it. I mean, the first Himmels with Aquatic M60s on defense, they pushed that really aggressive push, and Critical Hit knew it was coming and still set up for it. They said, all right, you're going to do this, so we're going to be ready for it. They had those 50Bs trying to get that early damage off, and they're still plenty willing. They didn't, even if they knew that strat was coming, they could have done something like push the hill or just pushed all the way through the south before those tanks got in there and made made some variation in the change. Instead, they said, all right, we know you're going to be here, so we're going to try to kill you.
We're
going
just
to
gonna
take
do
this
it.
brawl right now.
And they rolled over him like pretty hard.
Yeah,
so.
that's pretty much how it's been. All these fights have been brawls. There have been no slow games, no, we're going to try to feel each other out.
It's been a great day for tanks, you know what I'm saying?
No, it's been fun to watch. Some slow tanks can be really beautiful
Don't
to watch.
get me wrong. We watched some of the slower VODs, and I liked them. There was a lot of strategy, really in-depth mind games as well going on in that. And I respect the hell out of that. But I mean, this is fun. This is just good old-fashioned.
No, just good old trade for trade.
Yeah,
Let's just go over, and it's just all sorts of chaos. It's extremely fun to even sit here and talk about as well.
As I understand things better and I start to really learn a lot more of the nuances, like that, I'm really going to even enjoy those slower games even more. But for now, I like this.
Yeah,
we can do this.
It's a lot of fun. So we are on to battle number 5 here in just a moment. It is 3-1 in favor of Aquatic M60s, who are now 2 rounds away
from qualifying to
Gold League. So they could close it out on this map, which this map is going to be steps.
I like me some steps.
Oh, yeah. So steps, very open map. We saw this in the previous match between Aquatic M60s and Ping 99. So we'll have to see if Critical Hit were doing their homework and watching our cast. And so they've probably already seen what Critical Hit did just last round. With the majority of the qualifiers being played offline, the first time these two teams played, they didn't know what they were going to get from each other. They just have watched both, M60s got to watch Critical Hit play the first series, and now Critical Hit got to sit there and watch M60s play the second series. And so we'll have to see if they made some adjustments, if they make any changes. And so far, it doesn't look like it, because M60s are bringing the exact same lineup they brought last game, and that worked very well for them when they caught Ping out on this north end of the train tracks. They just deleted 2 tanks before they could even get away, and it looks like they're just going to bring the same lineup, pushing over down on the west. Meanwhile, in the east, we have the defending side of Critical Hit sitting up with a very, very standard defense.
I haven't seen a 132 today, by the way.
We have a WZ-132. It's a tier 8 light tank. Its gun is pretty good on the move. Camo's all right. I think there are some better tanks than the 132, but this may have just been a situation where they're on their personal account still. They don't have all the tanks unlocked, and this is just the scout tank that he had. Or there is something that I'm missing about this WZ that they opted to bring it. Not a normal choice, though, by any means.
Okay.
We saw it a lot, actually, back when the format was 754, when it was primarily tier 8s. We did see a lot of, well, not a lot, but some 132s and 131s. I know teams like Refuse Gaming decided to bring them, but they've kind of faded away in this format, and we see a lot more T54 lightweights, R251s, and 1390s. And we used to see a lot of T49s, especially on Cliff. We don't see them near as often anymore, which kind of makes me sad. So, that being said, Aquatic M60s...
They're actually setting up to take potentially this 1 point here.
Yeah, so what they're doing right now is that they've put... That's the reason they brought Felix, is they brought this British tank with a good gun depression and the good turret armor to just sit here on this hold down and just be able to punish anything pushing through this north end. Then a majority of the tanks from M60s are going to focus on the field side. They're going to move this 430. Once again, opting to bring the 430 solely for the camo value. I don't really see any other reason to bring it. It has good DPM, but the gun handling is so much worse than the other 140 that I just don't know if I can justify it. In this situation where they're just using it to sit on cap, it is kind of clever. So they're actually really close to shooting Morphic, and I don't think he's lit, especially because he's not running. So he hasn't been lit. He's just moving back and forth. The light tanks in general can move around and not be spotted. They don't lose their camo value until they fire. If that 430 was to move right now, he'd lose camo and probably be lit. However, 54 lightweight can get away with it. So they're shooting real close to him, and somehow they haven't done any damage. Just sitting there in the middle of that crossfire, and he finally takes a shell into the side there for 392. And M60s have already lost the HP lead that they had.
Yeah, it's gone now. And Felix, though, he's still up there in that Centurion. He's trying to make shots happen, or shots count, but still Critical Hit, minimal damage in this game so far.
Mm-hmm. So Mr. Man's still on cap. Morphic has chosen to reposition just because he's already taken a bunch of damage. He's probably been lit. I'm not really sure by what, to be completely honest. I think things were just getting too hot. The blind fire was getting too close, and him being a one-shotter decided, all right, it's better that I just keep my gun alive for now and not try to force the cap. And Mr. Man, just sitting there in the same spot, has not been reset yet. And I don't think that they have found the angles. These E5s just kind of working this ridge, trying to find the blind fire. He's on the far left side, though, which is kind of difficult to hit from that spot.
Still, I'm waiting for, oh, there we go. Felix getting a shot off, but unfortunately it bounced. And I'm guessing he's going to be a pretty big factor in this if he's able to land those shots and really get that angle, because then that forces critical hit to approach the defense on that one point a little differently.
Yeah, so if they want to push over in the north here, sit here poking up, these E5s are able to hold down, and what Felix is trying to do is just get some damage on them when they poke up, and so far he's only gotten a couple of shots off. Panzer's going to push up into the spot where he can get some lights on that cap. Mr. Man already saw that was coming, though, that E5 lit it, and Mr. Man knew that if he stayed there any longer, he was going to get lit, so he chose to turn around and drive away and live another day and not lose the HP. Now they have a tricky situation, because Panzer Gunner is stuck in here. He can't leave because these 215Bs are going to have this angle. So if he tries to go anywhere, he's going to take damage. If he sits there, it's only a matter of time before they find an angle to kill him, especially if they shift some tanks around south. And it's just the sole bat chat of Halo sitting in the south here who could potentially get overmatched. However, Aquatic M60s are not choosing to flex around. They're keeping all their guns together, and it looks like they're going to gear up here to make some sort of north push. They're going to push these 215Bs up the north, and they're just going to use the train tracks as cover and just dump over at A5 and into these E5s. However, the E5s will still have the favorable position, and they're still roughly even on HP, only a couple hundred different.
Yeah, and we see E5 here. Excuse me, this E5 from Bailey's just was trying to get the angle on the 132, now slowly backing off. Maybe he thinks that someone else is pushing with that 132 off of that position.
So this lightweight's kind of gotten up into here, into the hold down, just trying to find some lights. He's just poking around, seeing what's still there. Meanwhile, these 215Bs and the 430 and the Batchat are all going to push over and expect to watch Felix get down and join them. And they're going to make just some sort of push just straight out of here, get into this bowl where they can kind of hold down. And if critical hit see it, they could shift these E5s over here, and they have control of this line, meaning they could play this field side without taking too much damage. All they have to worry about is a single E5 that'll have side shots on them, which they could deal with pretty quickly.
And as we talk about it, Morphic now in the T-54 starting to move over, and here comes Mr. Man in the 430 and Veggie in the Batchat slowly hitting up this line here. And going for a much more aggressive play as well.
Yeah, they're just pushing over, and they're taking a lot of damage. Critical Hit's doing a good job at punishing this cross. They saw it, they got their guns in position, and they're just trying to find what damage they can, and they have about a 2,000 HP
Morphic's
lead.
about to get a really good...
So Felix is about to go down. I think he was trying to make his way up to cap or possibly go to the middle road, and he crossed that field, and those E5s just pumped out a ton of damage into it, and it's only going to be a matter of time before Halo lines up a shot and finishes him. And that is a tank lead in favor of Critical Hit, and now this brawl is just going to start. I would expect to see M60s just push up and over. They know that they're down tanks overall, so they need to try to force this while they have
here
the
they all are. Wow, what a nice little battlefield we have going on. And wow, Morphic goes down instantly. Redux now taking a lot of bit of damage, as well as Veggie. All fire seems to be focusing on Veggie, and there he goes.
Good focus fire out of Critical Hit. That's something that they really need to focus on to make sure they could take this. Another tank going down. There's only 2 tanks left. Huge HP lead in favor of Critical Hit.
Yeah, this looks like a much more solid Critical Hit as they take down all the tanks. This one is definitely going to be in their favor. And that was just really well played, as well as just solid patience from Critical Hit.
Yeah, no, indeed. They played very well. They got their stuff together. And when M60s made that push, they read it. They saw the lanes they were coming from, had their guns trained on it, got off early damage. They gave themselves that 1,000 damage HP lead. Then they caught Felix out in the open. And at that point, they're gun up, and at that point, almost 4,000 damage ahead. At which point, it's just going to snowball. So
yeah,
M60s arguably did what they should have in that situation when they're down HP and they Felix got caught out. They just went for the brawl. They know that Halo and that Batchat's out of position. He's off on the other side. Just dumped his shots into the Felix. So at that point, you need to go for that brawl with Batchat's either reloading or out of position, and just try to do it while the numbers are still in your favor. Once that Batchat can get into the fight and he has shots, then all of a sudden it's not in your favor because you have less guns.
Yeah.
So
looking at the damage, I mean, it was such a better spread. Lefty in the STB doing 3,590. And then Annie May also doing about 3,200 damage almost in the E5 and the STB. And then if we look over at Aquatic M60s, highest output was 1,500.
So something to look at here is looking at these E5s. This E5 got shot 8 times and only had 1 penetrating shot. and bounced 2,700. So he was sitting there hold down. I'm going to take a guess that it was Felix that was sitting there trying to find those shots, and they just weren't hitting that cupola and just bouncing off. And then meanwhile, looking over at Kerry, he was not so lucky and had 7 hit and had 6 pens, but he was one of the ones that went down pretty early on. So he probably wasn't taking damage until after that brawl started.
So they are going to bring it up now 3-2. Slowly taking that lead
Slowly
away.
creeping up. So, you know, it may be that M60s don't need to lose 4 rounds in a row. It's just they need to lose 4 rounds throughout, and that's the critical hit. Just find a way in. They're not done yet. They're showing that they have some fight.
Absolutely. And so would you say that this is an upset if Aquatic M60s don't make it in and lose the critical hit?
Just speaking in terms of critical hit being formerly Silver League team, they've made some roster adjustments to bring in some more talent, but they're still at base. They were a Silver League team last season,
right,
as opposed to M60s having 2 years or 2 seasons of Gold League experience.
Right.
So just based upon the experience, not looking at individual player skills, but just the experiences that these teams have had, yeah, I'd have to give this in favor of M60s.
Okay, fair enough.
So it is 3-2 on to battle number 6. The map is Steps once again. And we'll have to see if critical hit can even this series up. However, it is a challenge for critical hit as they are now on attack, and defending on this map is arguably much easier. So looking at this lineup, I would expect to see critical hit making a push over here into the 8-9 line with those 113s, getting them nice and close where they can kind of bully that cap or push onto the cap and make M60s push into all their guns. Meanwhile, M60 is doing the same thing and just pushing completely south. They're going to try to take map control, make sure that they control the 8-9 line. And oddly enough, well, I thought they were going to do one thing. They're just kind of sitting here. Maybe thinking that M60s were going to make some sort of aggressive push. M60 is bringing a rather fast lineup, only having the 1E5, the 2 STBs, the 140, the 2 bats in our U251. Maybe looking to see what they saw last round. If you remember, the bat shots of Dark Ninja and Mr. Man just made that push around south and just cleaned house. Maybe hoping that they do something similar and they can catch them out. The bat shot of Halo is sitting here up on the bush on top of this hill, camoed up, looking for some sort of push that is not coming yet. And M60 is just choosing to chill out, sit around in a very, very strong position, and now we see some movement out of critical hit. I expect to see these 113s just shoot up the middle road here, get into D5, D4, where they're in the low ground, and the rest of the mediums are going to go ahead and push up around the 1 line. Panzer Gunner kind of was already out ahead in that 132, just kind of got some eyes. And meanwhile, looks like that bat chat is just going to kind of creep around, see if anything gets spotted over the top. And they're going to slowly work their way up the 1 cap. They're going to try some sort of dual pincer attack here. They're going to make sure they clear the north, kind of similar to M60s, what they did the previous round. However, they're leaving that bat chat down there, hopefully trying to catch out maybe one of those bat chats. Having a single tank by itself on the weak flank when you know their team's been rolling pairs of bat chats is kind of dangerous.
Slowly. Okay. So I'm noticing critical hit now is kind of mounting something around that 1 point.
Yeah, so the WZ is going to push in here. He's just trying to make sure that he doesn't get spotted, kind of stopping each bush, moving up a little bit. And he's just going to sit there where he has a good line of sight. It looks like the 113s are starting to blind fire that bush where it's a really common spotting bush right there at A5 right in front of us. The other common spot is that ridge that we've been talking about all night over at C5. You can also put a tank up on one of those bushes passively and just have them sit there and light. We've kind of faded away from that just because it's so predictable. A lot of teams know to blind fire it and they can capitalize on it.
So I've noticed most of the capping that actually does happen on this map on Steps is that one on the C3.
Pushing over into the 2 cap is kind of, I don't want to say it's unpractical, but it is pretty hard just because of the crossfires they have to push into. As you see, you have Felix in that STB sitting up there on that ramp. So he is kind of hard to dig out, and you're going to have to eat a lot of shells from him until you're in a position where you can really do damage to him. He's going to be hold down. As you make that approach through the 8-9 line there in the lower side, you have to expose your side armor to him. If you don't expose your side armor to him, then the other tanks are going to have clean shots on your side, and you're obviously going to choose to
Morphic is Right, I understand what you're saying, but I'm looking at Morphic, and he's drifting all over the place right now, going into the backfield, trying to maybe get a shot off on the bat shot of Halo.
So they haven't seen the bat shot yet. They probably haven't seen a couple of these tanks, and they're trying to figure out where he is. The other bat shot is actually shifted south to where he has some cover. So if the other bat shot isn't spotted and M60s think that Halo is alone and they try to jump him, he will have some support. Meanwhile, the other 113 from Critical Hit is going to go ahead and push south.
I really like this ballsy play from Morphic here. I mean,
yep, he's just pushing around, trying to see if he gets any intel, see if they have tanks in the south. They hadn't had, Critical Hit hadn't had any cap pressure, and almost 5 minutes has gone by. And so they're just trying to figure out what they're doing and how they're setting up. So he's just trying to gain that intel. Like I talked about earlier, that tier 8, you know, very viable scout. It's a little bit risky to push them off by themselves when they don't know where all the tanks are.
But hey,
so,
I mean, look at all the information he just got.
Exactly. He's risking it just for getting the intel. Meanwhile, M60s are just going to group up and move north. They may just dump north. They may have a feeling that these bat sheds are down in the south. And this could create a giant overmatch in favor of M60s. They're starting to work these corners. They have some shots on that 113. They may push over. Vanity might have something to say about that, though. Just like Felix was sitting in that hold down earlier, Vanity is sitting in his own hold down, sitting up there at A2. If they push over these train tracks, he's going to have free shots on the side of them for days, and it'll allow the rest of these tanks from Critical Hit to just get up against these train tracks and have a very brutal crossfire that M60's just driven themselves into.
Yep, and Morphic again trying to do a little bit of scouting, but now he is slowly making his way towards...
Now here's the problem is Vanity's going to go down. He's getting shot by the bat shots, and the rest of the team isn't in a position where they can really support him. They're choosing to just stay south and reposition and let him go down for free. If that was going to be the plan all along, I'm not sure why you wouldn't pull him out sooner so he's not caught out on his own.
That's going to be a one-tank lead.
So it looks like Critical Hit are going to catch Morphic out here. They're chasing him through this open field. It's 2 bat shots versus an RU. And I don't think he's going to be able to pull off a Shimbo and get away out of there with little of his HP left.
Lefty, though, is about to come on the flank of Bailey's. Nope, Bailey sees it now. That E5 versus 113.
So Critical Hit are doing what's smart right now, and they're trying to get all their guns together. Meanwhile, M60s are hoping just to capitalize on an overmatch. They're just pushing through. They're going to get up in these rocks, and they're going to find some shots on these 113s. They just need to back up a little bit further. They can get kind of in that hold-down corner. However, that first 113 is going to get tracked. Lefty's going to try to simp for him, pulling out in front, blocking first track so he can repair, keep his ally alive. He is going to take some damage in return, though. HP is in favor of M60s.
Oh, Bailey's finally taking some damage on the E5, not bouncing off as we saw 1 or 2 shots do so before. And now so much damage on that bat shot from Dark Ninja, and he might go down here.
He'll go down in just a second unless they can kill him. 140 is going to find the kill shot here in just a second. 1200, it's a one-shot on one shot.
Oh, and they both go down at the same time.
Barely go down. Lefty actually finds the shot from downtown right before the other 113 gets focused out that he works so hard to keep alive. And now Lefty's just going to be focused out as they drive away. Cap is at 20 from the 2 bat shots. 2 bat shots just panicking, knowing that fight was over. Let's just try to force some cap pressure. Maybe they'll make a mistake like they did yesterday. However, that is not the case.
No, not at all.
M60's just rolling up, finding the shots, getting the ramp kill there onto Halo. Mr. Man does go down to Carry, but then
Carry is about
the 3 other tanks just come rolling in, focus him down. He doesn't have any shells. The ram and the kill shot.
Good night.
Good night. That is all she wrote. And that is a 4-2 lead in favor of M60s.
More game. And M60s will be your next Gold League qualifier.
Yeah, so 1 more round. And they'll be back in the Gold League where they've been for the last 2 seasons. I don't know.
Try to make it 3?
Yeah, try to make it 3. So they're really close from doing that. So I can't tell you how excited I am for the season to start. Like, just watching these qualifiers just has me in the high mode right now.
May or may not have mentioned that you're excited.
A bunch of times tonight.
Fair enough. So if we look at the damage here real quick, we saw the STB, excuse me, letters, doing 2,600, and then the Batchat as well doing another 2,600. The spread that time for the Aquatic M60s was much better than what we saw from the last match.
So one thing I want to point out, I was talking earlier about how auto litters need to be critical and make sure that all their shots count. Both these bat shots just going 6, 6, and 6 across the board. So 6 shots fired, 6 hits, 6 pens. That's what you need out of a team that's going to be successful in the Gold League, especially out of an auto litter.
And like you said, they did it beautifully.
Yep, and looking over at Critical Hit, not really able to put up a whole lot of damage as a team. The Lefty did put up some damage there, even while he was blocking for his teammate, who ended up dropping just before he did. but just not enough as a team to really combat it. And I'd argue it's more a position thing than a damage thing. When those bat chats got caught out, Critical Hit knew, or M60s knew where they were, knew they were separated. And so even though Critical Hit tried to get back into that fight early, M60s was just had the positional advantage. Those 113s were caught in the field where they're just kind of in a little nook. All they can do is back up. And the rest of the guns from Critical Hit weren't really able to slow that push down or keep them alive. The one got permatracked in the field.
Yeah, that was bad.
Lefty tried to keep them alive, but couldn't pull it out.
So potentially one game left. Aquatic M60s to making it once again for third season in a row for Gold League. And Critical Hit is struggling. I mean, they are not playing poorly by any means. Aside from that one waterfall strat we saw from the M60s, I mean, they've been in there and they've been picking their fights and for the most part doing fairly well.
Yeah, they're reading Critical Hit very well is the biggest thing. They're looking at what they're going to do. They're making calculated decisions. With this last round, they said, all right, they're probably run some sort of south defense. They have some tanks down here that Morphic and that RU kind of went down there. And then they were able to say, all right, so what we can do is we know they have tanks in the south most likely, so we're just going to push north. And they said, all right, this is probably going to be an overmatch. We'll have that instant. They got the 140 out of that ledge. Vanity, they got him for free.
That was huge.
There was no trade.
Was huge, yeah.
So that's a tier 10 that they essentially just gave away for free and weren't able to really punish M60s for taking. So
this is it.
It's
potentially
going to be battle number 7. The map is going to be Ruinberg. And we are one round away from welcoming M60s back into the Gold League. So going over the lineups here. M60s bringing 2 113s, a 50B, once again favoring that 430. Really odd choice, but I will get over that soon. The 140, 2 140s, and that T54 lightweight. Meanwhile, Critical Hit just bringing 3 215Bs, an IS-7, a 140, a Bat Chat, and once again favoring that WZ-132. Meanwhile, Critical Hit making a very aggressive split push right here. They're taking control of the zero line in the Delta Village, but that Bat Chat's pushing all the way into that A3 cubby, and he's about to be in a world of hurt as these 140s aren't going to stop. They're just going to push around. He may be able to get some shots off if they stop to shoot him. The 215Bs and the 50Bs sitting over here on the zero line should have some shots.
Oh, wow, taking a lot of damage, though, Veggie.
Veggie's going to probably get focused out here. He's not going to get away. Halo's going to make sure he drops before he goes down.
Oh, my goodness.
And this 50Bs finding some shots along with those 215Bs. Why am I still just the 150B from Aquatic M60s has been out of position. It's just
Aquatic
been a whole bunch
M60s
of
right now are taking a lot of damage.
Shots. Yeah, they're bleeding HP. They're down 4K already. They finally take Halo down, but Halo did exactly what he was supposed to. Just be a distraction, put off his clip. Even if he goes down, the 215Bs were there to capitalize on his death. And that's the difference between this round and that last round we just talked about. They let that 140 go down for free without trading. This round they said, all right, we'll give you that Bat Chat, but we're going to make sure we punish you. We're going to take, they took a tier 10 down and they damaged the others. Now they have taken control of this A6 village. They are trying to bully carry out in this IS-7. But some Russian mediums against a Russian heavy tank. It's kind of an awkward duck situation that I-7 could be alive for a little while, especially if he has support from his teammate.
Yeah, and he actually might take out this 140 that Bailey's is sitting in as the other 140 from Mr. Man.
Meanwhile,
tries to slowly take some damage and soak up.
The 113s are just dumping over from cap, and they're just pushing into these 215Bs. They know they have the overmatch. They're trying to split the guns from Critical Hit. They know that they can't support all of them, so they make 2 separate pushes. And so if Critical Hit, they have to pick one, and they're hoping they pick the wrong choice. However, Critical Hit still have their HP lead.
I got to say, this right here is a beautiful play from Mr. Man. He completely blocked out carrying that IS-7 from coming around and destroying Bailey's in the 140, but still taking damage from Lefty in the 215B, as now the other 215B and the 140 are slowly starting to move down that village.
So the WZ here, just kind of in the south, has some shots on these Russian mediums. Meanwhile, these 215Bs are just going to push in. They know they have the HP lead. They're just going to push in and bully, try to take out some guns quickly. They're going to find Bailey's. And it's actually that 132 that I was just talking about had some shots in there. He backed up just a little bit too far, getting in the back of his turret, and he drops.
This is looking very good for Critical Hit if they can keep their composure and just finish off these last 2 tanks. There goes one, but and then a trade as Armin is taken out.
This 50B looks like he's on clip. He doesn't have any shots. These 215Bs with the very high DPM are just sitting here, just rifling shots into him. Meanwhile, Panzer got surprised by Morphic, and they actually find a shot into Morphic.
Wow,
they're not able to keep alive Panzer. And now Morphic.
Oh,
the shot from downtown. Great shot there from Critical Hit to close out that series.
Not bad.
No?
Not bad at all. What an answer If that's how you're going to come back after a 4-2 deficit on pretty much reverse match point, that is the answer that you want to show.
Yeah. No, definitely. It was a great play there out of Critical Hit. Very, very good defense, and you could tell it was very rehearsed. They knew if we put this tank here, we have these 215Bs over on the 0 line and behind the fountain. We'll have that crossfire, so if they want to, try to drive in and kill that bat
so much damage.
Punch. So they dropped the tier 10 plus a lot of other HP. And so while Halo did go down, the early momentum was in favor of Critical Hit, and they gained such a huge lead after that early push that they were able just to drive their 215Bs in, not really care about what was shooting them, just eat the shells with their HP, even if they don't block them, pump out the damage, and they just were able to, just essentially bully some Russian mediums that pushed into that village.
Yeah, and I gotta say, it was a really beautiful play though from Mr. Man in the 430, protecting, I believe it was Bailey's, kind of blocking off the IS-7 from Critical Hit.
Yeah, just trying to keep him alive
from Carry.
For a little bit longer. Yeah,
that was such a good play because they actually ended up destroying Carry in that IS-7 because of that beautiful block. So really well done from Mr. Man. I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, no, it was great team play out of Critical Hit, and or out in that case out of M60s. Yeah. They kept them alive for as long as they could. But once again, Critical Hits had such an HP lead that it didn't really matter. They could just push in. They could eat the shells. They didn't need to try to play it slow.
Actually, I just heard that Critical Hit called a strategic timeout.
Yep. So they get an extra minute here to kind of discuss about what they want to do. It's 4-3. So Critical Hit would have to win the next 2 rounds to make it to the Gold League, and then we'd have 2 Critical Hits in the Gold League.
I know how bad you actually don't want that to happen.
No, please
Not because you dislike the team, but because of the names.
Yeah, no, I do not want to have to deal with that. I mixed those teams up probably 6 times during that earlier match. I don't want to have to deal with that during the regular season.
Tough, but this is very close. So this is exactly the opposite of what we thought was going to happen overall in the matches today, where we had 2 5-0s, Critical Hit versus Critical Hit A, and then we saw Ping versus the M60s, which was another 5-0. This actually has been the closest match we've seen all day.
Yeah, and you could argue that this is the only match that's really been sudden death, essentially. Yeah. The first match, both teams know, okay, if we lose this first match, we still got to drop down to the lower bracket. We still have one more chance.
Yeah.
The second match, one of those teams was going to go home, but they weren't just that one step away from making it to the Gold League. Now both these teams, this is do or die. It's the last chance they have. To win it, they're in the Gold League.
The loser is losers out.
Losers out. Down into silver. So they'll try it. It just happens. Yeah. It just happens that both these teams, M60s were relegated out last season, so they automatically gain a seat in the Silver League. So even if they don't make gold, they're still playing in silver, and then with Critical Hit already being a Silver League team, they'll still have their seat down there.
Right.
So
but that's not what they want.
Yeah, they both want to be here. They want to be playing for the $325,000 prize pool.
The finals, the multiple finals, the NA finals, and of course the global finals. So
it all adds up.
It's what they want. Yeah.
And it all starts. The road begins August 4th.
Thursday,
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
Yep. We'll be here.
We'll be right here watching matches, bringing to you guys a lot of very good tank battles.
I'm really excited to see Gold League stuff.
Yeah.
Because, if this is, yes, there's gold players in these teams, but, if this is how
the teams
cutthroat.
The teams that have outright rehearsed, that have practiced.
That's what I'm saying.
Bringing that top-level play.
If this is how that cutthroat is in silver, potentially, I can't wait to see what happens in gold.
Yeah, no, it should be a lot of good fights. I've kind of talked with some of the team captains already, and they've made some really interesting roster changes that you guys will see when the season starts. So there's going to be a lot of fun stuff coming up here. So we are into battle number 8 for the first time tonight between Aquatic M60s and Critical Hit. It is Aquatic M60s on defense and Critical Hit on offense. So, going over the lineups, Aquatic M60s bring a 215B, a 113, an IS-7, 250Bs, a Batchat, and a T-54 lightweight. So having that slightly heavier lineup, I'd expect to see them kind of move towards the south. They did bring that double 50B lineup, and they made that really awkward north play earlier. Not something I'm used to seeing personally. However, they did make it work, and they quite decisively beat Ping 99 with that same strat. However, yesterday, when Critical Hit played them, I know that they saw this strat out of M60, so we'll have to see if they identify it and or can capitalize on it again. Meanwhile, Critical Hit coming in with 2 215Bs, an IS-7, 2 140s, a Batchat, and a WZ. Bringing a little bit of meat as well, kind of a split lineup. Have the heavies, have the mediums. They can make some pushes. it looks like at this point they're going to choose to push their 140s all the way out into that Kilo Zero corner, which doesn't actually look like Aquatic M60s are ready to punish. They have the one bat chat that can support this lightweight, but if these 140s just push up, they can kill that lightweight for almost free. I don't think those 50Bs will have crossfire from there. However, I could be wrong. Lightweight does get lit. The 140s are going to go ahead and push up. And the 50Bs are going to have to choose to reposition at this point because they do not want to be stuck down there because they would have no escape if they don't get out now. Morphic just choosing to run. The IS-7 is going to go ahead and close to that E6 corner again. And Morphic...
So much damage already.
Eating the shell, and the damage is almost even at this point. Morphic gets tracked, chooses to burn his repair kit so he doesn't die. And Morphic gets to live for another day on 441 HP.
Which, as we've seen before...
Gun alive is gun alive. Doesn't matter if you have full HP or no HP. If you're alive, your gun doing damage. Meanwhile, rather interesting fight going on over in the town between the Batchat and the 50B. I don't know if they spotted each other. Judging by the positioning of that 50B of Felix, he knows he's there. He's cutting up to the right. He's trying to find this Batchat. Meanwhile, the Batchat's looks like... Nope, he's just going to go for a cap. I don't know if Halo knows Felix is there, because he could get tracked. First shot goes off and misses, and Halo's going to make it into that corner. However, that Lightweight's going to come help finish him out. And possibly a couple of these guns from M60s are able to turn around and find some shots on that Batchat, who's just choosing to sit there right now. Felix at 50B is going to push around. He's going to be able to clean him up. He only has 700 HP left. Shot after shot after shot just going into him. He's caught out. And that's going to be the second tank going down. Meanwhile, Critical Hit just chose to push up into the Delta Village. They're pushing around. There are 3 one-shot tanks alive for M60s. So if Critical Hit can't clean this up, they have the HP lead. They just don't have the guns. They need to hurry up and take guns out of the fight. One tank does go down. They're trying to find a shot on that 215B. I don't know if they'll be able to find it. Halo does manage to run away. Tanks dropping for both teams. A 113 and a 215B going down. Critical Hit do have the lead. They are up 300 HP. Carry getting focused.
Not so much.
It is back and forth. Less than 100 damage deciding between them. The WZ-132 could be the hero here. He's finding shots on that I-7. One more shot, and this I-7 of Mr. Man is going to be going down. Shot goes into the dirt. Misses. Lefty can't find the shot.
Mr. Man is trying to move, but he has a tank right behind him. He's trying to push up.
He's trying to back up so he can back those tanks away. And WZ finally does find him. Felix is going to roll in. He should have a shot for Lefty here momentarily. Left Felix making sure he lines up a good shot. Slowing it down.
And he
takes the shot.
Unfortunately, he did eat his shell, and now 722 damage on him as Vanity is trying. But wait a second, he might actually take out Vanity here, and he does.
And now it's all down to Panzer Gunner. Aquatic M60s are 733 HP. Or 6 minutes away from making it into the WGLNA Gold League. If
Panzer Gunner can potentially take out Morphic, this is definitely doable.
He should just have him on the HP. He should be able to take him out.
We have a one-on-one.
So it's a one-on-one. The 50B, we watched him fire his shots, so he's going to be either reloading or already reloaded. He's going to try to chase him down. At this point, Critical Hit is attacking, so they do need to make something happen. This is in Felix's favor. I'm not entirely sure why he's trying to go hunt for the kill. He's probably looking for a shot on that 132, but the 132 going all the way back beyond the fountain is not going to be spotted. And now he's going to double back north. However, Felix has a pretty good idea that he's still in the north, and he's choosing to go that way instead of dropping south. So they could meet head-to-head, at which point it's going to be all over for Panzer.
Yep. I mean, but again, it is still very doable.
Yep, he could definitely pull it off. He's moving around up north. He may try to go up into that B1 corner. Nope. He's going to turn right. He's going to see Felix. He's going to swerve right now to get into here. Takes one shot. Still alive. Doesn't get tracked.
One shot left.
Felix is going to try to find a shot. He comes around this corner, but he's not quick enough. 50B just a little bit slower than that WZ. And now Felix has to get unlit. He's going to sit still for a few seconds to make Panzer think where he's going.
Felix is now just trying to get back in.
Yep, so Felix is waiting to get delit before he makes a move. He doesn't want to telegraph to Panzer where he's going. You could have him misdirect where he drives one way, and then once he knows he's going now, he's going to turn around, but he just chose to back up, and he's actually choosing just to sit here.
I was going to say, I think he's going to wait it out.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's only one tank alive, so if Panzer goes and sits on cap right now, Felix has 90 seconds to figure out what he's going to do, where he's going to get the reset from, and it's only a 49 HP, 132 alive. He could ram him and get the kill at this point. So it's just a game of cat and mouse. If the time does run out, the battle does go in favor of M60s. So Panzer's going to push over on the 0 line. He may suspect at this point that Felix is sitting in the north, so he's going to try to find an isolation, see if he can catch him out in the open, maybe get a perma-track from somewhere where he's hold down, and could flip this around. But with Felix having, 1,100 HP, it's a tall order for Panzer.
Panzer is just kind of cruising, enjoying the countryside right now.
Yeah, he's just trying to get a new position, appear from somewhere he hasn't. With him previously being in town, Felix at this point, because he's been unspotted for so long, may have already assumed he's coming from this way. Yeah, it's just up to Panzer to try to sneak in here. May try to hold down, and just has to work Felix down without Felix closing.
All right, and now Panzer Gunner is kind of working something here. He's on the red line, making his way slowly towards that one cap, but I don't think, obviously he doesn't know. I'm sure he has an idea, but Felix in this 50B has not moved.
Yeah, so Panzer, if he drives anywhere through that cap, it will trigger a warning. So he's going to have to go around closer to the red line side, but he's actually going to choose to drive south. He may just go sit on the cap down there and draw Felix out, but that's not a situation he wants to be in.
Right.
Felix just choosing to chill out, playing it smart. No reason to risk anything. No reason of, putting somewhere where he could get ammo racked or sitting in the open. He knows if this round's over, they go onto the gold league, and critical hit don't.
This has got to be a stressful situation for Panzer Gunner.
Oh, yeah, he knows that.
Or even in Felix.
Yeah. No, so he knows that it's not in a good situation, and Panzer goes ahead and gets on cap. Minute 10 left to work with, or in this case, 110 seconds, so minute and a half. Panzer's just going to sit there on the bush and hope he can catch Felix out. Felix does have to make a move. Now, what someone might do is Felix, while he'd give up the situation where he can't cap anymore, he could potentially push off in a few seconds and try to drive around and see if he could catch Felix out, because he knew Felix was going to try to come and reset him.
Right.
So he could try to reposition. The thing is, at that point, Felix knows he just has to run around in circles for, the last minute and a half, because Panzer can no longer cap. And Felix is just going to choose to go up and over, not slow down.
There. Wow.
Lands the shot, doesn't even think about it.
So anticlimactic.
Just aims, fires, and that puts
Deuces.
Aquatic M60s into the Gold League as our 10th team. So they are now in the Gold League. They get to play for the $325,000 prize pool, and also start playing for their chance to go to Poland or wherever the grand finals end up being at some point in the end of next year.
In the near future, yeah. So again, congratulations to Aquatic M60s for making it. And I want to give a really big shout out to Critical Hit for honestly really fighting for that last spot, really putting in the good work and just fighting the good fight overall. I mean,